Chapter 22. Don followed his biological father into the kitchen while the boys went upstairs to play. Don watched them cross a bridge into a small play area with a pool table and a TV. When he turned back to Stephen, he found the old man holding up a glass full of pink-colored drink. "What's this?" "Drink it. You'll feel much better." Don already felt better now that he'd found his nephew, but he took a sip anyway. A few seconds went by, and nothing changed. "I don't feel any different." "That's because you know better." "I don't understand." "But I do," Stephen said with sad eyes. "I know what's happening with your boys." Don said nothing, only stood there with his peach drink. Then he said, "You know about the curse?" "That's what you call it?" Stephen laughed. "I suppose it is a curse, isn't it?" "But you don't have to worry about that anymore, do you?" Don wanted to cut to the chase. His pulse quickened. "How did you beat it?" Stephen took a deep breath and said, "I gave it away." Don stared, motionless. "I'm sorry, but I think I misheard you. Did you say you gave it away?" "That I did, Donovan." Don suddenly laughed at the use of his full name. "Nobody's called me Donovan since I was a kid, except my wife and Aunt Cynthia." "They never called you Donnie?" Stephen grinned, going along with the subject change. Don was instantly reminded of the fact that the man standing before him, his biological father, wasn't around for his childhood. "How did you give away the curse?" he finally asked. "Reluctantly," Stephen joked. "I had to give it to someone who would willingly accept it." Don thought about those words. "Who did you give it to?" "My own father." Stephen suddenly transformed into a sadder, more bitter version of what he had been before. "He went insane and died shortly after. To this day, I still wonder if it was the cancer that killed him, or the monster." "I'm sorry," Don said quietly. "Thank you, son." "How were you cursed in the first place?" "I was young and stupid back then. I'd gotten caught up in a paranormal craze, joined a group of other stupid kids looking for a portal to hell, as they called it." "A portal?" That struck a chord in Don. He remembered the nightmares he'd had as a kid, where he had felt like he was in a hellish world. "Yep. It was rumored to be in Destin, Florida, where your other father was from. We never found it, though. Instead, I found something else." "The demon?" Don guessed. "Bingo. I never even saw it when it attacked me. I'd gotten separated from the group in some woods. Something big and dark bit me. I'd assumed it was a wolf or something." "Then you started noticing changes?" Stephen looked at him steadily. "I had nightmares, heard a voice telling me to do awful things to people." "Did you ever do anything bad?" Stephen nodded sadly. "Yes. I hurt someone I truly loved. She was pregnant at the time. The demon was afraid, at the time, of passing the curse on to more than one person at a time, so it made me kill her. I didn't understand at the time. I barely even remember running her car off the road. And then I met your mother in college. We were just friends. I was still heartbroken about my previous love, Lucy. Then your granddad, your mom's dad, got sick around the same time as mine, and I spent some time with her to comfort her. We If I'd known the curse could be passed on to children, I never would have." "I know," Don said, trying to comfort the old man. "I did the same, and so did my brother." "Ethan?" The man said the name quietly. "I'm sorry about what happened to him. It wasn't fair." "I know." Don didn't want to talk about Ethan, and he couldn't help wondering if Stephen knew that it was Don himself who had killed him. "I don't want the same thing to ever happen to one of your boys," Stephen went on. "You seem to care more than I thought you would," Don said bitterly, "considering you've been absent for most of their lives." "Just because you haven't seen me doesn't mean I wasn't there." Don thought about that for a moment. "You've been watching them?" "All of you," Stephen corrected. "Almost your whole life, Donovan." Don found the air growing thick. "I don't know what to say to that. I think I've seen you a few times. In Florida, on the beach." "You don't have to say anything." "I'm upset about this, though." "I know," the old man said. "I can feel your rage from here." Don was startled by that. "You can?" Stephen nodded. "You were always an angry kid. You got that from me. The curse somehow turns that into an almost physical manifestation. Anger comes off of you in waves of energy." "Connor is the same way." "I know." "That means we're both definitely cursed," said Don. "You have to help us get rid of it." He felt a thrill of anticipation. The cure was in his grasp. "I can't," Stephen said, completely deflating his son's hopes. "What do you mean you can't?" Don asked. "I'm not going to pretend I'm a brave man, Donovan. I'm not like my father, who was the bravest man I've ever known, aside from you. He took the curse upon him, and it destroyed him." Don wanted to be mad at his father, but he couldn't. He didn't know the man, so how could he expect him to take on such a burden, even though he started all of this in the first place? "Tell me how to do it, then," Don finally said, coming to a decision. "I'll take the curse away from my boys and—" "Kill yourself?" Stephen finished for him. "Because that's what will happen, having all that bad stuff in you like that." "I have to do something, for my boys." Stephen sighed. "I don't even know how my dad did it. I felt a weight lift from me." Don was shocked and angry. What if he didn't take anything? What if he just made you think the curse was gone? "You've just touched upon an interesting point. Before you got here, I did a similar thing for Connor. I made him think I took his curse, and I can do the same for Jordan if you want. I don't just want them to think they're cured. I want to actually cure them." "Well, then, I don't know what to tell you. Though I wouldn't completely discount the power of suggestion. It's a wonderful thing." "So is a father's love," Don said, and he knew at once that his words had hit home. Stephen cringed. "I do love you, Donovan. I've been there for you, even though you didn't know it. I was there when you tried to kill the creature in its cave." Don instantly remembered that night. A freak thunderstorm manifested. "I have the gods on my side," Stephen said, as if he'd read his son's mind. "Whenever I begged enough, they brought their lightning down on the monster." "Did you beg them to kill my mom?" Don found himself asking. "They didn't kill her. Your other father did." Don remembered something else. The night I confronted the demon, was that you? Did you help? Stephen nodded. That was incredibly brave of you, going into its lair like that. I'd probably be dead right now if you hadn't helped, said Dawn. But you can't keep hiding behind the gods. If you knew the demon was dead, why did you stay hidden? Dawn wasn't even sure if he believed what the man was telling him, though it did explain a lot. Dawn always wondered where those storms came from, right when he needed them. I tried to prevent your brother from killing those people. That demon used him to kill others like us, others who could bring about the monster's downfall. The demon is dead now, Donovan, said Stephen. It can't hurt you anymore. Dawn shook his head. It may be dead, but it's not gone. It spoke to me tonight, told me it was possessing someone I knew. It said it was looking for a way to return. Stephen looked shocked. He opened his mouth, as if to say something, and then closed it again. Dawn left the kitchen. If you're not going to help me, then there's no point in us being in contact with each other anymore. I did help you, Stephen said, grabbing his son's arm to stop him. You'll see. Connor won't act up anymore. The power of suggestion. Don't discount it. Dawn shook his father's hand, gathered his boys, and left.